Come on in. Mrs. Monson, would you like to join us?
No.
We were having,
I thought we already motioned to adjourn the meeting.
we were having a full session.
You were probably anticipating 45 more minutes, right?
Well, yeah.
You never know.
Hi, Mikey.
We've got somebody in the audience now.
Okay.
Look what the dog dragged in, huh?
It's only gonna be 65 degrees out, if it were 32 and raining, he'd be working.
So CJ, we have somebody in the waiting room
Oh, we do?
or not?
Nope.
Okay.
And your co-host too, so you can see folks who are in the waiting room, but no. nobody's there.
So then go ahead.
Well, you did a motion to exit executive session?
We did.
Yeah, I think he skipped over number 5.
No, I thought I closed it.
5 you didn't do yet.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't here, but that's what you should probably be up to, I'm
And it
guessing.
wasn't done. Well, let's just,
So Guy, can you send me the information for closing executive session, please? Pretty please.
I'll think about it.
Thank you.
so I guess the opening and closing of the public hearing is all number 4, right?
Yeah,
No, we haven't done number 5 yet, the resolution.
Right, because you did the closed session in the middle there.
Correct. So the public hearing's been closed. We've had closed session. And now we're up to number 5 on the agenda, the resolution adopting local law number 2 of 2022 established the 2022 local retirement incentive program. Someone like to move it?
sure.
Joe moves it. Second? You seconds. We got a rhythm going here. Good. Any further discussion? Does anyone hear me? I'm kind of breaking.
Yeah, no, I can hear you. I just think it might be a good idea for us to plan to review whether or not we want to do this each year, sort of procedurally. Put it on our agenda, sort of like, do we want to look at this each year? So we don't not look at it if we want to.
To your
Would be
point,
nice.
perhaps we should put it during budget time. Or we can
Yeah.
budget that the incentive of allocating X amount of dollars. Here is, let's say, if you have 4 employees that have potential, we'll allocate X amount of dollars for that. I mean, this is all good conversation. I think as this evolves, we can at least have that discussion. We'd also have that discussion if we want to do it or not. You know, if it would be
Right.
feasible. But that is something I think we should probably have that discussion during budget season. So at least we can allocate that money as opposed not to, right?
That makes sense.
Okay,
Makes sense.
good, good ideas. Okay, everyone. Any other further discussion? Okay, Mrs. Munson?
Ruth Croft,
No, you're voting on.
we're voting on this.
Yes.
You put your over first. I'm usually.
I-
This officer, so it's like.
I know.
Usually that second, so it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm up.
Okay, so what did you actually say?
Yes.
Thank you. Bronwyn Losey,
Yes.
Aye.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes, okay. Item 6 on the agenda, privilege of the floor. We have anybody in the waiting room? CJ?
No one in the waiting room.
Okay, no one here also. So I guess we'll move on to number 7. Let's see, in your packet. And that is the community library report. I will share this with you and not to go into too many details. We did meet with, I believe it was Andra and also with Susie from the library on certain ideas for the expansion of the library. And I think they're going ahead with their plan to expand the building. And so You know, I support that. And I'm sure everyone else, it's wonderful that they have the charter. It's wonderful that actually tax money comes back from the county to this. It'd be nice perhaps to have a new building, maybe in partnership with the town at some point down the road, but we'll wait and see how that happens. So right now, it's a good conversation. I commend them for all their hard work. They are very, very respectful of taxpayer dollars. They're very concerned about not putting too much pressure on the taxpayer, even though in the big picture, they are 1% of your tax liability. Your fire protection is 2%, and your town's 5%. And I believe that the county is around 24-25%, and the school is 2/3. That's not a criticism, that's just the way it is. So we'll move on from the library report. On to, we have, let's see, youth services, and that's in your packet also. And then we have Tompkins County Legislative Report, Mike Sigler, nothing in the packet this week.
He actually sent an email after 4 o'clock today to the whole town board with his report on it.
And that'll go in next month's packet, right?
I'll probably throw it in the next couple of days, so it'll be recorded in this
Okay,
month.
that's fine. Is the rest of the board okay with that?
Yeah,
I just didn't have time to do it by the time he sent
Well,
it. It was.
did your report get in?
my report.
Oh, yes, I got
Well,
Joe's in, I got Ruth's
Your
in.
report came in, then we
Yeah.
probably should be consistent, let Mike use also, right?
Yeah, that's what she said she did.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they got theirs in on time.
Oh,
I would like that as a record.
I did mine right after the planning board meeting, so I could include that.
Right.
good job. Okay. Moving on to Park and Rec. And this crew's been busy with the bulkhead, right? Amongst other things.
Yep, and thank you to Mikey's crew again. We've made great strides this week and, we're out of the water, so we're just into the finish work at this point. Our Parks and Trails draft master plan went to the planning board this week, so we got some comments and feedback from them, which was good.
And we have 7 concerts.
We have 7 concerts
Lovely.
scheduled, yes,
Lovely.
weather permitting.
We have Mega Move, we have Salt Point Brewery down there too. Oh, nice, because they also are stickers down there.
We'll have a couple different food trucks in South Point, yes.
Oh, nice, everybody will have to congregate again.
Yes.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Take a turn. Okay. All right, you want to add anything else to that?
Just thanks to every department, actually. CJ's helped us out immensely with Parks and Trails and the residential center and a bunch of other stuff. Thanks to Debbie's department and Mikey and the supervisor's office working with us through software transitioning. So been great teamwork lately.
I try to, well, nice thing is I think they all work well. They all do service. They all share services with each other. I'm hanging on to CJ's coattails here as we go through open governance because I'm trying to, she translates well. I appreciate it. I mean, I do know how to work a microwave and certain coffee makers, and there is hope for me at CJ. I appreciate your patience. Okay.
I just want to quickly say that the parks plan is really exciting. There's some really nice stuff in there. I know both you and CJ have been working hard on that. And, this is the first step I realized, but there's some exciting ideas there that I'd love to see come to fruition.
Let's hope so.
Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, Brown, okay, all right, let's move on. Highway report. You've been busy also. It's a good thing you don't need a lot of sleep, I'm not telling you that.
Good evening, everybody. My report's in the packet. First and foremost, before we get into what my report is, I would like to thank my crew. A tremendous amount of effort went into this past storm. It honestly started Monday night with the flooding. Myself and other guys worked until about 12:30 at night, or I should say 12:30 in the morning. Fixing driveway culverts, trying to get people in and out of their homes and putting things back together prior to the temperature change and the snow and ice. And again, thank you, Pat, for your help with your crew for Saturday and Sunday. On average, we had about I think 20 hours over OT for the guys, for the storm. Right now, we're looking at 140 hours on average per employee, and that's due to flooding, water main breaks, and ice and snow. Just so everyone's aware, we get 150 hours OT per man per year. So that's a concern. I've talked to Ed about it. It's on my radar. Let's see, what I didn't have in my packet is a couple things opened up with CJ. I've been working on that. I've been meeting with Angel with Soil and Water, Tompkins County, discussing Salmon Creek Road. Some issues there we've had because of the flooding. I know you've seen it, Joe. We're gonna add in some more rock, re-engineer some issues there. Let's see. Tuesday, Donnie Armour from TG Miller and myself, and I believe, let's see, Stoken Engineering, I have that right. Met on Lovable Road, Jim Stewart with the engineer. We walked it, we looked at probably 6 major issues. They're heard our concerns. We voiced the concerns of the board and what direction we want them to go with the guidance from you guys. So we're working on that. I guess, also thank you to the board for getting back to me on the budget modification for my stone. I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to talk about the budget modification, because I understand, that this winter has really hit the budget awfully. And every time I get a cloud go by, I hear dollar signs being sprinkled down the road.
Next, no, it's not this week.
How did you come up with that figure? Yeah, because I know people don't want to know about this.
First, for the salt,
Yeah.
that was cricket. So that was decided prior to.
The budget modification numbers you're coming up with.
The 100,000 was hopefully enough to cover, 1,200 ton of salt. At $52.90, plus the trucking went up from 38 cents per ton to 41 cents to then 80 cents per ton. Also to help cover my fuel increase, which that budget shot already for my diesel and gas. Both of those are paid out of that DA account for the winter. So that has taken a major hit as well in the 11 weeks of this year.
Is this going to have margin for next December?
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
I know Mother Nature will tell you that, whether or not.
Right. I'm hoping this will get me through the year. Yes, into November, December.
Any other comments for Mike?
No.
Questions?
I just appreciate how hard this crew works
Yeah.
24/7.
Thank you.
Ron, you have any questions for him? No. So in the past, I'm sorry, go ahead. You okay? Right. So in the past, it used to be rule of thumb, not written in stone, that snow removal was in, the January, February, March, April. That was about 75% of the budget and 25% November, December. And sometimes we would be fortunate that November, December would be light, and so you build it up, right? Well, the dynamics of right now, as the environment changes, is that right now we're into the drizzle stage, right? 30 degrees, and at night it gets cold, it gets icy. Plus the fact is that we've never had that bounce back. Plus the fact that on top of that, now you have inflation kicking. On top of that, when they go out, they're not just going out plowing. If they can just plow the road, that's fine. But they're out there fixing the ditches, they're doing everything else. With that rain and everything, I mean, our conversation before, it went from an OMG to another 3 letters, and here it comes. And having lived through a flood where the water just runs off the ice into your basement, has no place to go, it is devastating, but there they are, going there. So if this was snow removal only, we may not be having that conversation, but this is snow removal, road mitigation, resurfacing, whatever it is down there. And once again, the main purpose, or one of the main purposes, is public safety. And God forbid you're going down a hill. And I remember one time that instead of Ithaca went to sand instead of salt. And that changed about halfway through because there was a lot of nastiness going on there because it just didn't cut it. Plus the fact that we talked about all the storm drains and sorry, but you probably know that better than I do. So what I'm saying is that it isn't because of mismanagement. On the contrary, he's managing his numbers. He's coming back with some really hard numbers. And I suspect at budget time next year, or I should say later in the year, we'll talk about probably 200 hours for overtime. We'll also talk about maybe having what the DA fund really should be, because how do you mitigate rain? And for instance, when someone calls me at 10 o'clock at night and Auburn Road's gone, you can't see it up there by the old Baptist church, right? There's nothing out there. I mean, it's just, amongst other things, because the water is running over it. So anyways, long story short, thank you so much for being in detail. And quite frankly, all the past superintendents made adjustments also as it dictated. And we do also. And some of this can be, or the overtime can be taken care of with comp time. That's up to you to manage that as with everybody else. The question I have now, just in general, is that you have your stone and oil. And I don't know about, you want to talk about the recommendation from the capital improvement committee now?
We can.
Get out in front of that, but once again, inflation.
Right.
I mean, inflation is another. We were right now talking to Dave here tonight, and we'll go into this a little bit deeper. We'll do a little bit broad stroke later. These projects, even in the private sector now, are not being done because, first of all, the cost of materials is increased. Also, the availability. I mean, how can you start a water line not knowing you're going to pipe? And what did? So it's a nightmare for everybody to try to find how to do these projects. And I'm going to turn this over to you and pivot that the amount that you proposed and that our capital improvement committee agreed to recommend was what number?
223,536.45. That's so what this is going to be is reimbursed instead of saying this is money for someone. After conversation with council and Guy can chime in on this to help me remember, but the dynamics of what we can use the money for are changing. So if we reimburse what the highway had, say, dump back into the pot, then that's a usable form for the ARPA money. Okay. After going back through with what we figured the escalation will be for the emulsion oil and the stone and trucking, it ended up going up $34,811.94. So that's what we're looking at for the 13.04 miles of road improvement.
That's the contract we did in January.
Correct.
Okay.
And when you would ask for that harder number, and that's a detailed number that I feel comfortable with.
Okay. Not knowing it could be changing over time.
Right.
But we're all watching it.
Trying to do it as soon as possible. I'm trying to get, actually I talked to the quarry today, and they're hoping to have the wash plant started and stone ready to be picked up in April. So, if the one thing, and I would like to go back just for a second about the salt, in the past, I think at least 2 winters, we've gone into each year with nothing in the barn. So, but not that extra 300 ton to give us that buffer. And that does hurt when we draw it down to the barn being empty each December. It would be nice if Mother Nature would be kind. Can't always predict, but if she would be kind to me and help out a little, that would be a nice buffer to have. But we'll see. But I'm sorry to get off track. But yeah, that's a number we're looking at for the reimbursement. Guy, am I right on that?
Well, I haven't gone through all the new guidance, but essentially, yes, you captured it. There was preliminary guidance and lots of Q&A and FAQs that were issued by Department of Treasury, amongst others, including OMB, on how and what you could use ARPA on, how, whether, and under what circumstances you might trigger single audit requirements, et cetera, et cetera. I'd say that probably between the regulations and the guidance was something about 1,200 pages. Thereafter, they issued an interim final rule, which made some adjustments based on the comments. And those were, provided a set of a basis upon which to try to move forward. And they've recently issued the final rules, adjusted their prior advice, issued more guidance documents. So in all, it's probably another 400 pages or so of material. One of the things that changed was they dialed down on infrastructure, and transportation and highway infrastructure can be incidental to an ARPA use, but not a primary ARPA use unless it's something like trails and pedestrian walkways and bicycles and things like that. So actually building roads doesn't look like it's not longer eligible. So anything that would need to go to highway would have to fall under the category, or should more rightly fall under the category of reimbursed for prior reductions in operating costs under a different ARPA category. Because it falls under a different category, I wanted to make sure that Mike understood that the question may not appertain to whether the highway department gets the funds, but how they're conveyed and what they can be used for.
So once they're conveyed under reimbursement, does that open it up for us to use them however we use highway funds?
Well, again, I haven't gone through all that guidance because I'm not sure that the town has gotten to the point where it has devised a plan on how to distribute or utilize ARPA funds. But my guess is that if it is reimbursement for prior lost revenues, then you can probably use it to do anything that was supposed to be done during the period that you didn't have those revenues, which probably would include road building. But the money can't go directly to road building. To draw a parallel, there's a lot of ways that you can use ARPA money to advance public health. But it doesn't mean that you can pay for strep throat examinations at the local school. You're basically dealing with programmatic changes, supporting local businesses, replacing lost revenues in budgets. And replacing lost revenues is a much different mathematical calculation than funding a capital improvement project. And this whole field really falls more into the realm of auditing more so than legal compliance. And in fact, there's entire, mostly accounting firms, but there's entire consulting and accounting firms that are offering services just to address ARPA compliance. If the town's plan is relatively simple and stays in the lane, maybe that is not a warranted expense. But if, for example, you were someone like the city of Rochester that had to do a single audit accounting for millions of dollars, you probably would be in the let's get an auditor, or let's make sure we have a fully occupied comptroller and finance department staff working on this. So the town only has, I think, a couple $100,000 to address. And I believe that at some point in its agenda, the CIC is supposed to take a look at the different options and make a recommendation or prioritize them. I missed the last half or some portion of the last CIC meeting. I don't know if the CIC got to that issue on its agenda, but I do note it's on the work session agenda for later in this meeting, so maybe it'll come up there. I just wanted everyone to know the new guidance was out, so we can now actually drill down for pretty much definitive answers now. And in Mike's situation and in several others, some of the rules have changed. So we need to, come up with a plan and make sure we're on solid ground before we disperse funds.
It's just shifting sand. My understanding was that the CIC did recommend this allocation to pay this amount. My question is this, is that since the 200,000 was the lost revenue, shall we say, from last year to be used, is that number 200,000, or do we use the inflated number of 200, 23,000 and change? And can we defend that? Would be my question, Guy.
Well, again, I haven't gone through all of the new guidance, but I do know that calculating lost revenue is a very different exercise than an allowed expenditure on a capital improvement. So I don't know what calculations they'll allow or not allow because we've switched from category D to category A. Like I said, I haven't gone through it. I think that it is still permitted, but it's only permitted based upon the calculation methodology set forth in the rules. That may not be the same calculation methodology that you would use for governmental accounting or old or new math at the local elementary school. So I don't know. I have not been through that guidance yet. I've downloaded it and I've started some of the overviews, but if you start to get into this is exactly what we intend to do, then I need to look at that and try to get an answer.
Well, my understanding is from the advisory board, of the capital improvement committee, there was the advice to put this money towards that amount that that our superintendent showed us. So that is the advice. I don't want to speak out of turn, but that is the advice that we had talked about at our last meeting. My question is that when this bill comes due in April, at our meeting in April, when we approve it, it's going to be paid out something. Can we use the ARPA money for that? I don't want to put you on the spot now, but I think I guess it gives you time to do some research on that to be able to defend it. Because this will come up in our April meeting.
Well, I don't know how to answer that except to again say I haven't reviewed the guidance and I was not at the end of the CIC meeting. And my final note was if anything is decided or I need to prepare anything for the meeting, please let me know. I never heard anything, so I was unaware that the CIC had even reviewed the issue, let alone made some determination or partial determination. So if somebody wants to get me the number and I'll try to get that done for April.
Well, and what the good news is that we still have another CIC meeting before our next meeting, so we can vet this a little bit deeper and see what the options are. Because now we're getting into the meat of it. Now we're actually getting to the application part. And my concern is we be able, like with any type of grant, I guess is what I call the grant, we can defend it. And I want to be able to do that. So we have time, and my apologies, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I think we'll discuss this, and Mike can send him an email with information about that. And when he can work in his busy schedule, because he's busy also, I understand that perhaps we can discuss this at our next CIC meeting, the second Wednesday of the month. So we'll put that on the agenda, right, CJ?
Yeah, you're the chair, so yeah, if you'd like to put it on the agenda, absolutely.
Good to be the chair. Okay, so we have a decision. So let's move on. Anything else for our highway superintendent?
Enjoy the beautiful weather while it lasts.
Yes.
Well done, my friends. Okay. Speaking of CJ, Director of Planning, the reports in the packet. Are there any questions or comments, CJ, that you want to, or comments you want to make first before we open up the board if they have any comments or questions for you?
No, there's plenty on there, so if you've got questions, I'll send them right along.
Okay. Anything for the board to ask? Now we'll move on. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The engineers report, Dave Herrick will have something for us next month. And part of that might be, we have some other means to attend to first. There'll be a discussion about consolidated water number 3. And there'll be a discussion about the highway building. And maybe at the next month's meeting, Dave Herrick can share some information about the highway building and about consolidated water number 3. There's another one with CW3 that because of inflation, because of unavailability of consistent materials, it is, what is the word? Problematic to bring this to closure. So, having said that, okay, Mrs. Munson, you have the helm on this consent agenda. Walk me through it, please.
Okay. All right, short consent agenda this month. Let's see, there's maybe 4 on here. So, someone will read the titles of each one, and then we'll have the first and the second and the vote.
So Ruth, You want to do A and B?
All right. Consent agenda A, motion authorizing supervisor to sign Lansing Youth Services 2022 agreement. B, motion amending town employee handbook, section 702 compensation time.
Thank you. Brown, you want to do C, please?
Sure. C, resolution adopting amendment to section 608 and 609 of Town of Lansing Employee Handbook to clarify paid leave rules under FMLA and short-term disability benefit provisions.
Thank you. Joe, you do D, please?
Resolution approving audit and budget modifications and supervisor's report.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Munson, do we need a motion to accept them? Do I hear a motion to accept? Joe moves it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconds? Any further, well, there's no further discussion, right? It's a consent agenda. Mrs. Munson?
Ruth Croft,
Yes.
Agreed. You're like a half step off.
Right, yeah.
I mean, at least I can't hear them.
I know.
Ron Winlowski,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item 15 in your packet, resolution requesting reduction of speed limit on Jerry Smith, Lansingville, and Lockerbie Hill roads. Mrs. Munson, is there some comments first before we entertain a motion or not?
No, this is, we did this, my office chose to do this separately because we have to send this motion on to somebody else, so.
That's the reason why.
We took it out of the, I took it out of the consent agenda.
Okay,
I'll move it. I'll second.
let's keep going. Okay, any further discussion? If not, Ruth?
Ruth Croft, yes. Ron Winlowski,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item 16 in your packet, resolution authorizing memorandum of understanding with the town of Ithaca for code enforcement services. Would someone like to entertain a motion?
I'll move it.
Is there a second? Who seconds it? Any further discussion?
Question, the guy, we were talking about doing a resolution to fix our resolution from January to authorize this person to do that. It's fine to do that next month. Guys listening. You're on mute, guy.
You're on mute, guy. Thank you.
Can you run that by again? I was writing down something from the last resolution. You said relative to this resolution.
We need a resolution to authorize the person from the town of Ithaca to do the enforcement in the town of Lansing. I assume it's okay to do that resolution next month?
Yeah, I think that was the plan. I mean, I remember the question. I thought it was a good catch and a good idea. Maybe not technically necessary, but clarity is better than, confusion. And I don't necessarily know that the town agrees that the 5 chapters I selected are the only ones, because a code officer has multiple enforcement roles, but I'm not sure we'd bring in consultant to enforce a no smoking on town campus rule. So yeah, I think the plan was to bring it in next month. I don't foresee that we'll have anything that would be a problem in the next, 30 days. I just don't know, but if there's a need to do it now, then I guess we could do something.
I'm fine waiting till next month, unless CJ's projecting that she'll need this in the next couple of weeks.
So I saw that this, that there was an email about this, but I honestly don't know to whom that should be directed. Is that the personnel?
This is something, Guy, I think we'll just quickly draft. It's just, in January, we gave authorization to specific office holders to do this enforcement. And we need
Right.
to expand that to include the person from the town of Ithaca.
Okay, so beyond the agreement? Or should this be added as a, I mean, it could be added as language to the draft resolution, maybe.
I think it's fine to just do it in April. It's just cleaning up our own paperwork. It isn't part of the agreement with the town of Ithaca.
You okay? All right. Any other discussion?
You did notice when I sent this out, I highlighted the price, the
Yes,
change of price. Okay.
yes.
Just in case anybody hadn't, didn't really read the thing over again, because you already read it, so that's why I did that.
It's riveting reading. I enjoy it. I can't wait for the movie. On that note,
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Brian Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine,
yes. Item 17, resolution hiring part-time code/fire enforcement officer for the town of Lansing. Someone like to entertain that motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Brian Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item 18 in your packet, resolution authorizing town supervisor to execute billing and site evaluation and programmatic feasibility study for Lansing Residential Center. And someone like to entertain a motion?
Let's start with the question about it.
We can take that during discussion. If you want. Once we have a motion in a second, we discuss it then.
I'll move to discuss.
So there's a motion here, I guess, for the motion. There's a first for the motion. Is there a second? Or I'll second it.
Sure. I'll second.
So now, is there any further discussion?
I'm still a little concerned about the wording of it. The agreement I thought during our committee meeting was that we would go ahead and ask for the funds for the feasibility study, providing that the state, what was it, they accepted our request for an extension for 1 year.
Yeah, the Office of Government Services, OGS. And so CJ, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Office of Government Services want us to have a commitment to this, but to your point, which is very valid, you're not going to spend any money, nor are we going to do anything else until we get a year extension.
Correct. That's the way I understood it.
Now, is that what is said in the resolution here, or am I looking at 6 when it should be half a dozen or not? But it's a very good point. We need to have clarity on this, because we're not going to do anything unless hopefully the Office of Government Services gives us that extension.
I think what Ruth would like is at the end of that resolve for it to simply say, for a 1 year extension.
How about-
It says for an agreement, but it doesn't say what the agreement is. And so it's ambiguous, but if you say what the agreement is.
So Ruth, what would you like to say?
I would like to say agree to an extension of 1 year as requested.
In the last resolved, is that what you're looking at?
Yes. The very last sentence says $40,000 contingent on agreement when you're state. It doesn't say what that agreement is.
Okay, so I just need to know what to put down here.
$40,000 contingent on agreement on acceptance by New York State Office of Children and Family Services.
On agreement on acceptance,
On acceptance of extensions.
so I don't need the agreement at all in there, or I do need that?
No, you need a contingent on agreement.
Or accept, or on, rather than a contingent on acceptance of extension.
Guy, would you like to wordsmith this for us a little bit, please, here?
On acceptance.
I think you got maybe what the gist of what this is about.
well, Deb and Ruth, what about if after the acronym OCFS, you put a comma and it just added a clause that said, granting the 1 year extension, comma, as requested.
Sounds good.
As requested, is that what you said?
Mhm.
Okay, granting 1-year extension is requested. And the rest of it stays just the way it's written. Is that correct?
So we have a motion and a second with said changes.
Yeah,
And you're still okay with the motion? You're still okay with the second? Any further discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Brian Winlosi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
yes,
Edward Levine,
Yes. So item 19. Motion authorizing supervisor to sign contract with Marathon Energy for gas services.
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
You do well in that second position, don't you? You really do.
Yes, yes.
Note to Ed, never have a lead off, right? Any further discussion?
Yeah,
No.
I wanted to look at this and see if we can come up with a plan to discuss ground source heating or cooling and look at the feasibility of that and how we would start that process and where we would start it before we sign this.
Okay.
Is that something that would go to the capital improvement committee kind of to put in their hopper?
Yes, it would. Now, granted, though, that if we sign this contract, we find other sources of energy, it simply decreases the amount of usage we would for this contract. Correct me if I'm
Right, I'm
wrong.
not,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Ellen, are we obligated to use X amount of,
good question.
Yeah, no, there's no obligation to use a certain amount just to go to the end of the contract year, I assume. So, yeah. But it at least locks in the pricing, which has gone up even since last week. So,
I mean, we looked at in the past, I think when Joe was first here, we looked at in the past as far as solar panels.
Mhm.
And it wasn't feasible at the time, but as New York State keeps getting more environmental, I said I think they're more focused on environmental, that there may be things out there that would make it more cost effective to maybe take some of the bite out of this. And that might be something for the CIC to maybe pursue, to put on there. But also, Brown, if you or Joe or anybody else has any information you can send our way to investigate that, besides, we can talk to Heat Smart amongst others, but to see what the feasibility is for this, I think we can do that.
Well, I think when we listened to the state talking about their barns, what they said, their report was that the big barns don't make sense for geothermal because geothermal is a more smooth heating system, and when you open those doors and bring in sub-zero trucks, it's just too much for the geothermal to keep up with. But the office space is a whole different story. I think the office spaces, we definitely could do geothermal. And I would love to explore that kind of thing.
Okay, is there since Brown, you brought this up, you and Joe want to pursue this?
I think it makes sense to go to the capital improvement committee. I don't think it makes sense to kind of go off in another direction. I think it makes sense to have people who are looking at the whole picture of all the bits and pieces that need to be improved upon in the town, to be following up on this also.
Since there's 2 members on it already, Joe, you just need to send us information.
Okay,
You can be that conduit of information for us to
I'll
see.
see what I can dig up here.
Or that'd be appreciated. Okay, is that, we all set them, Brown? Are you comfortable with that?
Yep. I just wanted to take the moment to address the issue before I forgot.
Okay.
You want me to send that to you and Ruth or larger group?
I want you to send it to all the members of the CIC.
Okay,
So I guess what you can do, you can send it to me, and I can send it out from there.
that works.
Okay. So motion, so we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Any other discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This is a motion, we don't have to have roll call, okay? So the next one, motion authorizing supervisor to sign contract with Constellation for electricity services, or is that the same? Are we in the same sphere with that one, or is it something different?
Yeah, the same sphere. I just didn't know how interrelated they were, so I didn't want one to get passed and then not wanted to have passed it. So that was all. That's the only reason I had this one pulled out too.
All right, so what we proposed earlier will still satisfy your concerns moving forward, right, Brahma?
Yep. Yep.
All right,
Yep.
any further
Thanks.
discussion?
How about we need a first and a second first?
We should do that. Anyone want to make a motion? Oh, we need not. Oh, okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Since there's no further discussion, let's move on now. Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Item 21, motion authorizing supervisor to execute letter to New York State Liquor Authority granting waiver of 30-day waiting period for East Shore Roadhouse liquor license.
Well, let me just ask, why are we given a 30-day notification period? What's the purpose?
That's normal. What, the waiver or the,
The purpose of the 30-day, is it just so we can make it to our meeting and have it within?
I think that, no, that's just,
the normal procedure is when an establishment wants to apply for a liquor license, they bring to my office a form, it's called a 30-day notice. I usually send that on. We don't make any decision. We have nothing to do with it. It's just a notification that an establishment is applying for a liquor license. So in the recent past, I've sent that, just emailed it on to the board just to let the board people know that somebody is wanting a liquor license. In this particular case, they're asking for a waiver so they don't have to wait for the full 30 days to go until they can get their temporary. So they can get their temporary liquor license sooner than 30 days.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why you were given 30 days. What's the theoretical purpose of us having 30 days to know this information?
I think that's New York State's liquor license law stuff. It has nothing to, it's no rule that we have made at all.
it's still going to be reviewed at the same time period, just moved up 30 days.
Okay.
Any other comments?
And again, we have nothing to do with it. They bring a piece of paper to my office and it goes in a filing cabinet.
I've seen that happen before. You tell us all that you filed this piece of paper and that's it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
possibly a motion.
Possibly a motion.
Sure.
There's a jump of the fence on me here.
so
Okay.
you're making the motion, Joe?
Oh, you would. Okay. Ruth? No second?
I'll second.
Let me take over now. Okay, second it. I think we already had the discussion. Any further discussion? The only discussion I have basically is that I would be hesitant if this were a first-time establishment. This establishment, or the so with addresses had liquor there in the past. And we have done something similar to that when Saltport Brewery were moving from one location to another. They had to have their liquor license reviewed again, even though they already had one. And so we encouraged, hoped, and to the credit of the people in charge, they were very considerate of our appeal for that. And so I feel comfortable doing this. If this was a whole new business, I would be a little bit hesitant because that would give, I think, the residents time to say, wait a minute, there's something going in here now. So that's my reaction on why I got the 3 days. But since it's already been established as when it was, I forget what it was called. It's been called something. Well, I mean, was Flynn, it was the gin house, it was somebody's beach house at one time, it was, anyways, I didn't know where you were. So anyways, enough of this. Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
That was in favor of, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it got delayed.
No, you're fine. Board reports, we have the board reports in the packets. If there's anything else that anyone wants to comment on. We'll go with, you talk first, we'll go with Brown first. Do you have any other comments you want to make about the board reports?
I don't particularly. All of my committees were canceled this month for various reasons. So I don't have anything to report this month.
Okay. Mhm.
Mine's in there, but I do have a couple small additions. One, I attended the ITCTC meeting on 3/15. And there was one note they made in there that everybody here probably already knows, that the Salmon Creek Bridge is due to open at the end of June.
2022.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
2022.
Yes.
I'm willing to bet it's over budget too.
Oh, it is over budget. Yes.
And I did attend today the local federal aid 101 workshop that was put on by Cornell. Very interesting, a lot to absorb, but at least maybe I can speak the same language as CJ does now.
Okay, anything else? If not, Joe?
I would just like to reserve time at the very end of the meeting to talk about some concerns I have that I sent in an email, so everybody can go home and not have to sit and wait for it.
Oh, love that.
Hey, Ed, can I just pipe in real quick?
Yes, please.
Just so everyone knows, the governor just posted a signed executive order 11.4, extending the COVID emergency declaration through April 15, 2022. So remote meeting authorization continues as an available option, not a mandate, through April 15, 2022, as of about 10 minutes ago.
Couldn't you wait another 3 hours to put that out?
No, because you might be scheduling something tonight and you need to understand, if you're going to schedule a public hearing, what the public hearing will say. I don't know what's going to come up, but scheduling public hearings and meetings and knowing what is the proper rule and what are the protocols has been one of the biggest single nightmares for municipalities in the past 2 years. So I just figured, in case we have stuff scheduled or public hearings or local laws or whatever's coming up, that it would be important for the board, and especially for the town clerk, to know how to draft the notices. That's why I brought it up.
I appreciate you telling us. I just wish the governor could do this maybe a day or two in advance so that we actually could plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, last second is sort of the habit, but yeah, if your intent was she still had time before midnight and could have waited that 3 or 4 hours, yes, I suppose that could have happened, because that is, I believe, what happened last time. But I just thought it was important to get that news out there, because it may not affect as many people in this town, but I know there are people that come to these meetings that have, for lack of a better term, sensitive receptors, or have exposure to people that require a little more care. And I've got that situation on a number of boards. So this is big ticket news, and it's important to understand how it's going to work until we pull out of. I have no idea when CDC or WHO are going to declare an end to the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. That's actually great news. So
It gives you options. That's all.
well, we were gonna go discuss this. And it might be something that we may not have to discuss.
So it's an option, not mandatory, is what he said.
Right.
I believe Guy said it's an option, it's not mandatory
To do what?
to have the
Remote.
Zoom meetings, for lack of another word. It's not mandatory, you don't have to have Zoom meetings.
I understand that.
Okay.
That part, but does it also waive the fact that, for instance, if people are home, they can vote from home? Type of situation like we're having tonight, or does that change?
It continues the existing paradigm that's under state legislation. It doesn't sunset until Executive Order 11 expires. So yes, consultants such as me and town employees such as CJ and Pat and Mike and others, and members of the public, applicants, people who wish to speak, they can all appear remotely should the town wish to accommodate that option. Town board members must, under the standard open meetings law, appear in person or follow the rules for a video conference attending of a meeting, which are very different than the rules we follow now. As long as the executive order is in place, executive order 11 is in place, then the town board members themselves can participate under a relaxed open meetings Zoom rule. If executive order 11 expires, town board members can still appear by remote video conference, but the rules and how the meeting is noticed are different and will need to be changed to accommodate those requirements of the public officers law set forth in the open meetings law.
So as of right now, what we're doing now can still apply until April 15th, my understanding.
Until tax day, yep.
And our next meeting is the April 20th, so we may have to shift things between April 15th and April 20th.
Well, it was fun. Okay.
So somewhere between 8 p.m. and midnight on April 15th, we might know.
That's good. That's Good Friday.
April 15th?
It's a Friday. Okay. So tax season actually is April 18th. Right? Yep. I think I don't read these things, right? I'm just pretty fake. Okay, so moving on to the work session. Does anybody want to take a break for 5 minutes or you want to keep going? You guys are okay? All right. I won't mention why, because I'm sure I'll get it. Yes.
Hey, I would just like to ask, did the board make a decision on how you'd like to do the April 20th meeting then?
Well, we're in a bit of a quandary because we'll have to wait till the 15th to find out. Personal opinion is to continue to do what we're doing. And hopefully at the 15th, they extend it. If they don't, that means that the board members will have to be in the building, or we're going to have to publish the addresses of people that will be going outside of the building, if they're board members, and the public will be accessible to there, right? Or what we can do for those that are concerned about exposure is we can put you in a different room. You still be with the public. We can ask they stay 6 feet away from you, but you would be in the building here. Is one of the options we can come up.
As far as I understand, we can keep doing exactly what we're doing, and if this executive order doesn't get renewed, then it only affects the 5 of us on the board. Everybody else can keep functioning exactly as we have been. So I think we should plan on doing that, and just the 5 of us have to find out if we have to show up in person or can still remote. Is that the short distilled version correct, Guy? Okay.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, I just wanted to confirm that the town board would prefer that, and I'm asking because this is hosted, it happens to be hosted on my Zoom account. So I'm just going to assume that this will continue indefinitely until I hear otherwise from the town board. The option for folks to join by Zoom.
My preference is to allow people to appear by Zoom if we can. I mean, I think it's easier for you, CJ. I think it's easier for Guy, other staff. I mean, you know, everybody who wants to be able to appear by
Not Pat,
Zoom.
that's okay. Not Pat.
It's honestly, this is not the best setup, and there's really nothing better. So it is the best we can do for now.
Mhm.
This hybrid.
This is very different, but it works.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's been recommended, I don't want to speak for you, but I guess I will, to a certain extent, is that I guess if people want to come in and be privileged of the floor, they need to give you enough notice. Is that correct?
Well, that was the thought. If you're still gonna say this executive order expires, and then the town board needs to come in here so that we don't really have to have Zoom anymore. The public can watch on YouTube. The only reason the public would need Zoom is to do privilege of the floor or public hearing comments. And according to the legislature, information, if people want to speak during privilege of the floor there via Zoom, they have to register with the, I don't know who it is, but they have to register, let's say with the town clerk 24 hours in advance. That way we would know if Zoom is actually needed for that particular meeting. So for example, then CJ wouldn't have to be hosting, Pat wouldn't have to be here. If we knew somebody was going to do it, then yes, we would set it up. But if nobody tells us ahead of time that they're going to Zoom in, they have a comment to make. So that's what's posted on the legislature's website. So that was a thought.
Or just come in person,
Or yes, simply come in the door.
like we did in the past, just show up.
In either case, we're still gonna televise these live, right?
Correct, yes. That'll never, that'll never go.
That's beautiful. It's gotten more people seeing these meetings than anything we've done to encourage them to come.
Unfortunately, the viewing is done after the fact. There's, if I check right now, there may be one person on, and that one person is probably an employee.
Yeah.
So yes, it's very nice, but, and we're broadcasting live, but there is maybe only one or two people at the most viewing it live.
Right,
Okay.
but they do view it afterwards.
Correct,
Hear about
yes, yes.
So we've already, I think, addressed the future town board meetings Zoom. I would assume we still want to wear the masks
Yeah.
until further notice for the comfort of the people that are here. I personally don't mind. You know, I carry my mask with me all over the place, and someone's gonna cough, I'll put it on this other person. But until further notice, until they make it optional, that's that's my personal opinion. I'm not gonna get into the brawl about that. So what else do we have? We talked about the American Rescue funding.
Well, could I just ask for a little clarification? Was there any decision on future town board meetings? Because the next town board meeting is going to be after the executive order expires. So should we try to decide tonight? If it doesn't expire, it'll just continue as is. If it expires, what do we plan to do? Would be kind of helpful for me to know what the plans will be.
And me.
So my understanding is we
And
still,
CJ.
my understanding is we still have the hybrid. Sorry, still have the
Yeah,
hybrid.
no,
But also, my main concern is about voting members of the board. We would have to put them in a different room. We have rooms to do that. They can be in the small courtroom if they want.
Why don't we
My
ask
office
Donna what you do?
I'm talking generically
Okay,
because it could be Andra,
okay, that's true.
right? I mean, Andra's not very mobile right now,
Mhm.
amongst other things. But anyways, this is something that, those are the options. And to Deb's point, I don't want to do an emergency meeting Monday on the, whatever that is, 18th, or whatever it is, to say what we can do now, right? So let's talk about the options then. And that seems to be that people would have to be here. Unless we want to post your address. I feel very uncomfortable about doing that and having people come to someone's house. I wish they would take that part away.
Mhm.
But that's just my personal opinion. And Pat, we set up a separate room. I mean, it'd be open to the public, but they'd have to keep the spaces.
so you say separate room, but they have no voting, do they would have to actually physically come in the room to vote?
No, they would be in the other room. We would
Yeah.
still have the same address.
Okay,
Because we have to post the address, do the same thing here. They would simply be in a different room, but they get the same address. Is that right, Guy? Am I missing anything on that?
No, that would be a proper way to address it. It would be the same address. I'm not sure how they construe the word location, but I'd be willing to argue about that if it came down to it. Because technically what the rule is that people can attend at any location at which a board member is present and participating. You would hope that if there was a need to have somebody in a separate room so that they could participate, that people would have the courtesy to understand why that is occurring and just stay in the boardroom next door. But legally, they would not necessarily have to. In a nutshell, this is why changing this archaic rule has been something that the Association of Towns, the Conference of Mayors, and others have been pushing the legislature on for over a decade. So
My only question, Guy, and I'm maybe not getting it across. If they're in a separate room within the town hall on Zoom, they're still legally can vote. That's my question. That's my only question.
if the meeting was noticed for them to be attending remotely by video conference and you followed the rules, the answer is yes.
Okay, that was all. I just wanted to clarify that.
Should we post on the meeting then that the meeting will be held in the courtroom and in room so-and-so also on that, so people know that town board members are in 2 locations at the town hall? Would that be appropriate? Or is it overkill?
Well, if you're asking me, I would say let's wait and find out what happens, because if the government or Albany suddenly changes the rules 5 days before your meeting, that still gives you sufficient time to post a notification regarding remote attendance. I mean, it's not a special meeting, it's a regular meeting. And to the extent that by the time you get that notice posted, you may or may not have met the 7-day, the 8-day, the 2-day, the 14.0275-day rule, it would have been because of the unexpected emergency of withdrawing your obligation, your ability to do it likewise. Alternately, there are some municipalities which have generated hybrid notices that cover both eventualities. And I've seen some of those and can supply some of those. I'm just concerned that we're chasing a remedy for a problem that doesn't yet exist and maybe going a tad far.
I understand that. I just want to avoid an emergency meeting on Monday for 2 days before the meeting. I'm going to come up with an action plan. But if you had those posts and trying to be proactive for Mrs. Munson to say you may have to post this, or if the executive order does not get extended, it is here. This is kind of a unique situation that the executive order expires before our next meeting. So anyways, just trying to be proactive, that's all. So thank you. Any other discussion about this? Okay, I think the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA, we discussed a bit, right? With the capital report from the capital committee, because our discussion was about the highway money, or where it goes to, or whatever the language I'm supposed to use. Executive session, I had also something for executive session. And I think it's going to be under the same thing. About employment. We can bundle.
Okay. I'll move.
Wait, what?
It's number 2 on the green card.
Just have to get I already filled in my part for executive session from the first one you guys had.
We have a limit.
Yeah. Okay, so Joe's gonna move it, right? To go to
Yeah.
executive session
Yeah.
for number 2, okay? Which we should probably just
Ruth wants to buzz in. She likes bat number 2 in the order.
medical, financial, credit, employment, history of a particular person, corporation, or matters leading to said dismissal, removal, promotion, appointment, or employment, discipline, demotion, or suspension.
Yes, one of those.
Okay.
Can you repeat that?
You can say it backwards.
That's good.
Okay, so Joe's the first, and who's the second?
7.
Ruth,
Ruth. And this is at 7:54.
so. Wait, do I touch a button?
Don't
We
touch
need to-
anything.
we
Don't
need
touch
to-
the red button?
You're not done yet.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Like a 3-second delay.